Hello, RP people, and welcome back to another episode of Role Playing as Smart People, and a little series I like to call
One-on-One with Santa.
Yeah. And joining me today, I have Karl Keesler. Hello, Karl.
Hey, Santa, how you doing?
Not bad. Welcome back to the episode, to the podcast. It's a second time. You're actually the second guest to come on for a second time. You're 22.
Nice. Cool. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh no, it's always a pleasure. So the last time you joined us, we were talking about your project Dust Bunnies.
Yeah.
If anyone's curious about that, I'll put a link to that episode in the episode, as well as, do you have anywhere where you'd like them to take a look? I can add that to the episode.
Yeah, I'll probably send you a link to the drive-through page because we're starting to put things out right now. So
awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So how after you actually finish the Kickstarter, I don't think a lot of people know kind of the steps, but what happens after the Kickstarter happens?
Well, there's a lot of work. It keeps going. So Chris, my partner at Doghouse, is the main head on this, is the main writer and stuff, and I'm doing art and stuff like that. So we're still ironing out some playtesting things and getting the layouts all together. Like, we were already working on it when the Kickstarter was going, so we had already started with a lot of things, but it's just a lot of editing, because we have so many things with this Kickstarter. So many. I mean, there's a core book, there's a hardcover of it, soft cover. There's a book of what's this huge adventure we're calling Novice Adventures, which is this long, cool adventure. We've got archetype cards, we've got power cards.
Oh, nice.
I mean, quick reference cards, like, so you can have at the table. GM screen inserts, just so many things that have to, if one thing changes, if we see a mistake on one, well, that just rolls over into everything else. So it's a ton of work.
No doubt. I think people almost underestimate the amount of work that has to go into an RPG even after the Kickstarter happens.
Oh yeah, it's a bunch of work, and we're getting things ready right now. Like, pretty much almost all the PDFs are released or being released pretty soon.
Nice.
And we're just getting some of the buttons buttoned up on some of the print on demand stuff. But other than that, we're almost to the finish line.
Oh, I'm excited. I need that info so I can develop yours and Scott's Task Force Raven together. Task Force Raisin.
There you go. Someone actually wrote, because we have a series of one sheets too that you can get. There's like 10 adventures, 10 one sheets that we have, and we have various writers do that. And I think one of them, David Anderson, a buddy of mine, wrote one. I think it's Quest for the Golden Raisin or something like that. You've got to get a raisin.
Yeah. So you've been with the industry, like the RPG industry, for how long now?
Oh my gosh, it's been for a very long time. Early 2000s, I think. Yeah, I think around there, early 2000s.
Oh, nice.
Right on the verge when the internet was hitting and everything like that. My first job in the role-playing game industry was a buddy of mine, local guy here, Rob Williams. He started a magazine called Gaming Frontiers, and it was all D20 based. It was right when they released the 3.0 D20 and the D20 license, and the internet was kind of getting in everybody's home and stuff like that. And he had an idea to make a gaming magazine based on D20. And so we were getting articles from like Monty Cook and I can't remember. I know Monty Cook gave us an article. There was other D20 based companies at the time. I don't know if they're still around or if they've found, but basically we put out like, I think 4 or 5 volumes of this and actually had them printed and stuff like that. And went to Gen Con and sold them and stuff like that. And yeah, I think you can find them in bargain bins now because it's so old. It's like, it's literally like, what, 20 something years old now. So
well, it's a piece of history. Come on.
Yeah.
If you find that stuff, I bet you there's a higher price tag than you expect.
Probably. But it was fun. It was a learning experience at the time. There was no print on demand or anything like that, like the drive-through has. So he basically had to print. He had to guess, how much he was going to sell and stuff like that, and we had to send off to print all those magazines and stuff. But it was fun. That was actually my first job in the gaming industry.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
So what? Because like, well, do you remember what your first like game that you were part of was? Like, what the name of it was?
what do you mean, like that I produced? Is that?
Yeah, that you produced.
Oh, yeah. It was actually so after that, after D20 Gaming Frontiers came out, uh, I hooked. I There was a game called Sidewinder, and it was a Western game based on D20 when 3.0 came out. Again, 3.0.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just called Sidewinder. It was a Western game. It was straight up Western, made for D20. It wasn't any kind of like Deadlands where there's ghosts and stuff. It was like historical Western. Like,
Oh.
so it was my buddy got it, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I've always loved Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
Westerns, I grew up watching them and stuff like that, still to this day. And so my buddy ran it, and I said, hey, let me make a character sheet because they really don't have a character sheet. And so I made a character sheet just for our group. I'm like, this would be cool. So we made a D20 based character sheet, and I put it up on an old Yahoo Groups forum way back in the day. Yeah, remember that? And the creator, Jeff Spakes, was head of that forum. He goes, dude, this is awesome. I love the sheet. He goes, would you be interested in because D20 Modern is coming out, and we're gonna change it Sidewinder and go Sidewinder Recoiled, and we're gonna make it based on D20 Modern. And D20 Modern had like classes, like if you remember, there was certain classes that you could get, and you could start with classes, and it was uh, it was made along that way. So that was kind of my first foray into anything. Now I didn't do rules or anything. I strictly did the
Mm-hmm.
layouts and the graphic design and stuff like that. So that's when Doghouse Rules was formed through
Oh.
Sidewinder Recoiled, and there was 5 of us at the time, and we did Sidewinder Recoiled was our first product, and it was actually printed. We won an ENnie for it for best electronic product back in like 2003 or four or something like that.
Yes. That's
Uh, and it was actually printed by Green Ronin Press. I think that's what they're called. They actually
Green
printed,
Ronin. Yeah, I think so.
yeah, yeah, under their Mystic Visas line. So we did a deal with them, and they actually produced it as a book. And it was,
Oh.
yeah, you could find those too in bargain bins or on eBay or something like that. We still get people that play it and still download it because we offer the PDF still for
Yeah.
sale. People are still playing that.
Oh,
So
wow. Well,
yeah,
the one nice thing I find about RPGs is, unlike with a lot of like media, digital media and all that kind of
hmm,
stuff, you can really it doesn't really matter if you're playing an older system or a newer
right.
system. You will always kind of find people who like those kind of things, and
Oh yeah,
systems themselves are kind of timeless. Like, yeah,
right,
you could say 80s, 90s, they didn't fully figure it out yet because they're still working with kind of almost like war game rules. But I find like
right,
once it hit like 2000s, it really started coming to its own.
right.
Um, have you noticed really a change in the industry since when you first got into now?
Yeah, I'm seeing more games that are kind of rules light and very like, I don't know if you call them indie games or anything like that, but they're very open ended where you're like kind of telling stories and with some rules thrown in. At least that's the what I think is the way it's going. But then there's games like Savage Worlds and Pathfinder, I guess the newest edition where
Mhm.
there's tons of rules and stuff like that. But I do see there's a lot of, and I guess that's been going on for a while, but it seems like it's more mainstream now. Like kids on bikes type stuff, which
Oh,
it's very rules light. You know,
yeah,
you know.
I would say probably Kickstarter kind of almost jump started the kind of
Oh
indie
yeah,
scene just
oh
through the
yeah,
accessibility.
oh yeah. Like I said earlier, with Gaming Frontiers, we had to print everything. You had to go and say, okay, I want X amount of thousands of copies of this book, and hopefully I'll sell them. And you're sitting on the books. But
Yeah.
now with like Kickstarter, with the way they are integrated with drive-through, like how we're doing Dust Bunnies, where we give you like a discount on getting the print on demand yourself. It's a game changer, really. You know, and even if you're not doing that route, you know exactly how many you have to print for the first run. So you just go and, okay, this is how many people backed it. This is how many people books. How many books I'm printing. So it's really a game changer.
Yeah, it almost takes like the stress off of,
Well,
are
totally.
we going to sell?
For sure, yeah, and it gives you a gauge on like how the market is. Like if you do gangbusters in your Kickstarter, and you're like, okay, the word is out, people are going to love this game. Then guess what? I quit my day job and maybe do this forever.
Yeah.
You never know. So
No, that's definitely true. So one thing I was gonna, because it sounds like almost Doghouse Rules was almost by accident in a way for its
yeah,
creation. What was it like transitioning from, like, oh, we're just playing these things and making these things for fun, to all of a sudden having like a company that's making these, like, how was that transition?
yeah, it's pretty weird. Still pretty weird that I mean, I'm talking with you about Doghouse Rules and stuff like that, and I never thought anything like this would come about. We were just like five guys when Doghouse Rules started. Just wanted to create a cool game that we wanted to play,
Yeah.
Sidewinder Recoiled and D20 Modern, uh, and it kind of ballooned up from there. We won an ENnie, which was like, I went to that show because it was at Gen Con, and I go every year. At the time I was going every year to Gen Con, and I just showed up in like shorts and t-shirt, and they're like, well, Carl, you're the only one in our group that's going to be there, so can you go to the award show? I'm like, sure. So I showed up to the award show just in like t-shirt and shorts, and I'm like, we're nominated. We're not going to win. Nobody knows who we are. Sure as hell we won. I was like, what? So I had to get
So,
on stage and thank everybody, and I was like, wow, this is embarrassing.
yeah, I'm totally underdressed for all this.
Yeah. But yeah, totally. So it was different. I'm still not used to it. The people that actually love playing our games, especially like Trailer Park Shark Attack. That is actually my first game I actually wrote. That uh, I wrote all by myself with help, of course, from Chris with editing and things like that. Uh, but the popularity of that game, it's like, wow, I can't believe people like this stuff. They like what I like. That's cool. Why not?
Well, it Trailer Park Shark Attack. Like I'm ashamed to say I still haven't had a chance to read it, and I kind of feel
Oh,
bad for that because I have heard so much about it from random people. Like,
yeah,
I'll be listening to a podcast that's you know people talking about a specific kind of rule set or style, and
yeah,
for some reason all of a sudden I hear the word Trailer Park Shark Attack. Like, it's got its own cult following for people who like to play it. Like,
yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah,
it's fun. I love the game. I love that genre, and I still can't believe it too when people mention it like on Facebook or Twitter or something like that, and I'm like, whoa, they're talking about my game. That's pretty darn cool.
it gives you almost like a little giddy feeling of like,
Yeah, yeah. I'm
yeah,
like, cool, awesome.
oh, that's super cool. In fact,
Yeah,
actually, it's funny because when I mentioned in the Discord that you're like on our community Discord that you're
yeah,
hopping on for an episode, and I had one guy
yeah.
on a Discord, Matt B, was like, "How come he wasn't at Jeff Con?"
Jeff Kahn.
Or
Oh,
what is it? That's the rename, I
yeah.
think of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I live in South Florida, so it would have been a hike, and uh, well, I mean, I could have made it, but it was the timing. I think it was in November, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was between Thanksgiving and stuff like that. It just wasn't. I couldn't swing it. It was
Oh
too
no,
much
that
stuff going on. I really want to go to that con. I think they're changing the name to Mythic
yeah.
Con.
This year it was. I think it's called Jeff Con to memorialize
Yes.
the guy who passed away, who
Right.
created the whole thing. And then I think
Yeah.
it's changing names next year. I'm not too sure what. Unfortunately, as a Canadian, American
Yeah.
news comes about 2 weeks late.
I think it's like Mythic Con or something like a Mythic
Yeah, that
Con.
sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am currently right now looking into going to that con.
Uh, I
So
I should eventually go to that con. I'll leave my
yeah,
safe Canadian bubble and head down
yeah.
to the scary United States.
Oh, we're not that scary. We're loud and boisterous, but not that scary. What's cool about that con, from what I understand, is there's a lot of game crafters that go there, like DM Scotty and all these other dudes. Wylock, I think his name is, and I'm into that. I make all kinds of crafts for my games and stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
actually, it's funny because the reason why I brought up Matt with saying like why weren't you there, because he's like I've played in a few of his games and like he runs them so well, and
no,
he always has this really nice setup. He's like, and I kind of
oh,
miss just playing his games. I was like, that's I that's one thing I've kind of learned from this like the tabletop community. It's people seem to know each other
yeah,
even though there may be so much distance around, like away from each other, where it's
right,
just like, oh, I'm talking with this guy over here in, Ireland about this system and this game,
right.
and you almost like have like these weird friendships that kind of pop up from it.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of it's from cons. I've been to a lot of cons, and I run a lot of games at gaming conventions. Like in February, I'm going out to Colorado for Genghis Con, and this isn't my first time out there. Yeah, it's a cool name, isn't it?
I
Genghis
like
Con.
that name. I like that name.
It's not my first time out there, so I'm going out there, and I have regular people that show up that I consider, I call them friends and stuff, and I've actually been out there on vacation with my wife, and they told me places to go, and they
Oh,
took
that's
me
awesome.
places and stuff. So it is cool that you get these friendships that evolve from this hobby that we do.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
out of curiosity, just from your
Hmm.
time in the industry, have you made any friends from people also within the industry that you thought even when you were creating, like, I would never get to meet this person before?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Shane Hensley is one of them. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, yeah, I remember seeing him in the early days of Savage Worlds and Deadlands. I was a big Deadlands fan. I collected all the Orange books, and I have all the original Deadlands Orange books. I have all those, and I saw him at a con once, at a Gen Con, and he was in a small little booth. It was before Pinnacle.
Yeah.
Uh, it was way before that company. And I saw him standing there. I recognized this from the photo in the book. I'm like, "Hey, dude!" I was just leaving the con, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're Shane Hensley." He goes, "Yeah, hey," and I shook hands with him. I said, "Dude, I love your stuff." I said, "I'll be back and look around. I just love your games and stuff like that." And he said, "Oh, thanks a lot, man." And I was like, "Wow, I never thought I'd know this guy." And today I work with him. Like, he'll send me emails and we'll chat about work and stuff like that. Like, because I do graphic design work for him.
Hmm.
So it's pretty cool that he's a super nice guy, probably one of the greatest guys I've ever met in the gaming industry. I mean, super cool, super nice. And I never thought I'd be like, wow, I'm working with this guy. That's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
just those connections, like, is that how you kind of, because is that how you kind of got involved with a lot of more Savage Worlds projects, was through him, or was that kind of just coincidental?
It was kind of coincidental. We picked up the game here. I think I went, one of the guys, or I went to a Gen Con and I played it was, it was right when Deluxe was coming out, or came out. It was around that time, super early. So you remember that little handbook you got for $10 for Savage World? It was right when that book, the original book, came out, and I played it at a con. I think it was a Gen Con again, and I was like, "Wow, this is a cool system. I really dig this. Super easy, but it has some crunch to it, and it's cool." So we started playing it locally, and at the time, I was going to, again, Gen Con, and I would start up. I would go to play a game. I wasn't running games at conventions at that time. And
Hmm.
I was like, let me play in a game, and unfortunately, most of them were bad. It was just a bad game, and I'd sit there and I'd stew in my own thoughts, saying I could do better at this. Let me give my shot at it. So I started running Dread, a lot of that, the Dread, the RPG with the Jenga tower. And
Honestly,
so,
that's
did you
that's
remember
such a
that?
cool system. That's such a cool system. I haven't
Yeah,
played it, but
yeah.
I definitely read it, and I was just like, that's so unique.
Oh, it's so awesome, and it's so fun to play at a convention, especially to bring because all you need is a Jenga tower and some character sheets. You throw that in your luggage and you're done. But man, it is so cool. I've been in games where other tables are stopped looking at their game and they're looking at our game, watching and listening to the story. It is so engaging and eye catching and fun to watch. So,
Oh,
anyways, I picked that game up, was doing it, but then Savage Worlds came out, and I'm like, we really dig this system. Let me try to run this at a convention, and I did, and that's where I was running like all kinds of games at conventions. I started getting people contacting me after the convention saying, "Hey, are you going next year? We'd like to set up maybe a private game with our friends." And so I was doing private games on like Wednesday nights and maybe Sunday mornings and stuff like that. So that's and it was all Savage Worlds. It was all Savage Worlds. So it kind of
oh, that's
just
super cool.
jumped right into it that way. So, and
Yeah.
That's how I met Shane. Was he heard about my games, and I met him at Gen Con, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Hey," he saw my badge. He says, "You're the guy," and he came over and we started talking. So
No,
yeah,
it's kind of funny. Like, do you think those things, like almost how your experience to get in the industry and everything like that, do you think
yeah,
that could happen nowadays, or do you think that's something that may have died out with technology?
yeah. I think it still could happen. I mean, it just depends on the places you go and who's going to be there and stuff like that. Sure, I think it totally could happen. Um, Especially too with technology. My One of my players in my games here at home, Candace. She goes by Candace and Magnificent online, and yeah, it's a cool name, right?
That is.
So when Chris and I were doing Savage Pathfinder, when we were on the design team for that, uh, Shane wanted me to run an online demo of it, and it's out there on YouTube. You could see it, and I asked him. I said, "Well, what players?" He goes, "Well, me and whoever else you want." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So it was Shane and my buddy Chris, and I said, "Well, Candace is awesome at this stuff because she's was new to gaming, and I was like, she's really good at this stuff. Let me get her involved in this, see if she wants to play." And she said, "Sure." And so it was all online, and she's an amazing role player, and she got
Yeah.
into her character, and she was doing all kinds of stuff. And Shane's like, "You know what, we need to keep in contact with Candace," and she's done stuff with them in the past,
Hmm.
since then, online and stuff like that. And she's pretty much, you can look at her up on Twitch, I think, and she does guest spots and things like that. She'll run games online. She dresses up in costumes and makeup, and she's an awesome GM and role player. So yeah, it can happen. Like she's starting now. Like she's I guess what you call a Twitch streamer, and she's doing great at it. And it was, I won't say it was all because of me because she has all the talent, but it was. I invited her to that one game, and that's where it kind of snowballed from there.
That's where it came from.
Yeah, kind of, but it was all her. I mean, she without her talent, it, my invitation means nothing. So
it
but,
it's kind of funny because a lot of people who I've talked to,
yeah,
it seems like it's always just like passionate people tend to stand out in whatever they're kind of doing. And the
right,
one thing I've really noticed with talking with people about like tabletop RPGs and people who are currently in the industry is a lot of times it is almost kind of happenstance where
yeah,
they weren't expecting to be part of this. They weren't
hmm,
expecting to join into it, but they just kind of almost fell into it in a good
yeah,
way.
yeah. That's how Doghouse kind of started. We were just like five schmoes, just like, hey, let's make a cool game, and we're still doing it. You know, two of us are. You know, we bought out the other guys, and it's Chris and I's company now.
Nice.
But we're still in it, and we're still doing stuff. You know, that we're interested in. Let's make a
Yeah.
game. Hey, we don't know if it's going to sell. If it does, great. But we want to, you know, do this. That's the same with Trailer Park. You know, I didn't know if anybody was going to be interested in it, but I ran it at a convention, and Chris is like, "Hey, these games you run at these conventions, is there something we could like maybe produce, you know, for under Doghouse? You know?" I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, I did this Trailer Park game. Let's try that." And it kind of went from there, you know.
Yeah. No,
So
that's cool. Uh, uh, Also, one thing that you kind of mentioned, I'm kind of curious about.
yeah.
How was working on the Pathfinder Savage Worlds?
Oh, that was cool. Yeah, that was very cool. It was mostly during the pandemic, so I was working from home at the time, and so I was working. It was super easy because I'd work from home during the day, and then at night I just keep my computer on and I'd work with Chris or Shane or whoever. We'd play test, and I would do layouts or make up stats for, you know, creatures and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
it was fun. It's a lot of work, but it was fun. And he has a great team that's taken over it now. Mike Barbeau is heading up all that stuff, and that dude is super knowledgeable about Pathfinder and Savage Worlds. Uh, so it's a super great hands, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was very cool.
That's awesome. Do you
Yeah.
do you, do you know the? Because I find sometimes there's very interesting stories about this. Do you know how you guys actually got the license to produce Savage World? Not Savage Worlds, because obviously,
Yeah.
Pathfinder.
So from what I understand is that Shane has been friends with the people at Pathfinder for, you know, forever, I guess. And I guess I only know a little bit. I know that they had made their new Pathfinder stuff,
Yep.
and somehow he was like, I guess maybe asked, or they said he could have it or something like that. And anything older, you know, all the first edition Pathfinder stuff, um, they just made a deal, you know, because he had been friends with them like for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
Because people are saying, you know, Savage Worlds is great, but it can't really do fantasy, you know. But I think that kind of proved him wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of a lie. I've seen fantasy. I think it. I honestly, I think with that one, people just kind of think it can't do fantasy because a
Right.
lot of times you don't hear the word like because I Savage Worlds I think it's more of a pulp action.
Right.
Like when you
Yes.
hear pulp action, you don't think fantasy, but really
Right.
I don't really see too much of a difference.
Yeah, I'm running it right now with the group. Candace is actually in my group, and we're running Rise of the Rune Lords, and I'm running it straight out of the book, straight, you know, Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, and it's freaking amazing. It's got my. I used to not like fantasy after starting with D&D way back in the early '80s, and I had kind of been there, done that, and
Yeah.
you know, I kind of moved on from that, but it's kind of rejuvenated everything just with the rules and things like that. And seeing these new players, some of them have never played an RPG before, seeing how they're reliving it and or getting into the fantasy setting and the genre and stuff like that, and watching them with Savage Worlds and stuff, it's kind of like lit a fire into me. I'm like, wow, this is pretty fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I've always the first time I ever heard your name, I was kind of
Hmm.
a new wouldn't say I was like new to the industry into like to Savage Worlds or anything like that, but I was new to actually talking with people
Okay.
who play, and it was through Scott.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I've always known you as the layout guru. How did you get that name?
I I don't know, to be honest with you. Um, well, I think maybe through my convention games. See, I would do these fancy character sheets and stuff. Maybe that's kind of what I was at the time I was known for. And like for instance, I did character sheets. I laid them out, and I did 8-track tapes. There was a '70s game. I
Yeah.
did a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 1970s edition, and that was a convention game. I'm like, what can I do with these character sheets? So I actually bought 8-tracks, real 8-tracks, and I peeled the labels off on them, and I sized up the labels, and I made labels like Evil Knievel and Daisy Duke and Kolchak, all these crazy characters from the 70s. And I kind of made up boxes and I put them on the 8 tracks and stuff like that. And so I would come to these games with these cool character sheets and things like that. And I
What?
think people,
So
yeah.
the A track was actually the character sheet.
Yes, yeah. So the 8 track label, you would actually have the 8 track in your hand, and the label had the stats of your character
Oh
on
my god, that is awesome. I've never heard that before.
it. So my day job, I'm a graphic designer slash art director for an ad agency,
Yeah.
advertising agency down in South Florida, and we used to do stuff like that. Like one of our clients wanted a Monopoly board based on his life, and they were giving him for his birthday or something. And
Yeah.
so we had to come up with, oh, well, we're going to just like paste this on a Monopoly board and stuff like that. So we had to kind of recreate that stuff. So things like that I do, I used to do a lot, and I just kind of integrated it into the role playing uh, side of my hobbies.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
No, that's awesome. So, I'm sorry, I just
that's okay.
literally I was just about to ask something, and then I immediately lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's okay.
Um,
That's okay.
just because I was thinking of like those 8 tracks, I was like,
Oh yeah.
if you have any pictures of those, I would love to see what that looks like. That's
Yeah,
so
I have some pictures. I can send them to you.
oh dope.
They're somewhere. I could find them and send them to you.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
so
those
cool.
are fun. Yeah, I made character sheets that look like the cover, not the cover, but the card backing for like action figures. So I've made
Oh,
character sheets look like that. Um, uh, just other crazy things like that. That I think maybe that's what people uh, equal me to, like the layout guy or whatever. So
and I remember what I was going to ask you now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, because it sounds because a lot of RPGs they're built on passion, they're built on that. Uh, I've been told once, and I want to see if you believe this to be true. You
Hmm.
don't join the RPG industry to become rich. You do it because you love it. If you do
Right.
it because you want money, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
I think it is to an extent for little guys like Chris and I in Doghouse Rules. I still have a day job, so I have to balance that out. And we're doing this for games that we love. Chris had an idea for Dust Bunnies. I said, okay, well, let's do it. Let's make it. We're not going to be, quitting our day jobs over it, or
Yeah.
anything like that. But it is fun. It is something we love to do. It's a passion. I have a passion for graphic design. I just love creating things like that.
Hmm.
The aesthetic looks and things like that of books and pages and things like that. I just want to, typography is my thing, and so that scratches that itch for me. I have fun doing the layouts.
Yeah.
So and Chris has fun creating these things, with me, the rules and the worlds and stuff like that, the Dust Bunny world and stuff like that. So yeah, it's we've always, especially Chris and I at Doghouse, we've always looked at it like, okay, this is kind of like a hobby, but yet let's make some money off of it. Maybe, maybe people want to play these games too, and it's cool to see them produce, ourselves because we can use them at the game ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's not very lucrative. Because if you think about it, a role playing game, all you really need is the core book, and
Yeah.
you can play anything. Like for instance, like Savage Worlds, I just
Yeah.
need the Adventure Edition. I'm good to go. I could run anything with it. I mean, it's just the limitations of your imagination and how much work you want to put into it. Sure, these other systems and settings and things like that are make it easier to run a certain way, like Savage Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Um, like before that came out, I started running Savage Pathfinder for my group without it because it didn't exist, and so I
Yeah.
just made some stuff up. I'm like, okay, let's play this, you know,
Well,
and it, so
yeah. Well, even it's kind of funny because I feel like Savage Worlds has brought a lot of people together in a strange way. But
oh yeah,
even my first game with Scott and Finder, we
yeah.
were playing. Scott made Savage Eberron.
Oh, cool. Yes. Yeah.
and it's still to this day probably the most fun I've had with a game. And it was just, they took, and this is another beautiful thing about Savage Worlds is you can really
Yeah.
just, as long as you have the imagination and the
Right.
patience to kind of like tailor it, you can make any game into
Yeah.
Savage.
For sure. Yeah. Christian Serrano is actually working on Savage Eberron stuff right now.
Oh, really? Like an
Yeah,
official project?
yeah. I think he's got, if I remember right, because I did again, I did the layout. I did like a layout template for him recently and a cover. So you might want to look him up because he actually, I think, got permission to
Oh,
do a Savage Eberron. I'm not sure if he'll be able to sell it, but I think he'll be able to put out for free.
oh, nice.
Because I think there is one that exists that's not Adventure Edition. I think he's kind of working on the Adventure Edition with
Hmm.
the Fantasy Companion. I could be wrong, but I think he's trying to wait, kind of merge it into the Fantasy Companion and kind of get ideas from that
Oh, that's
uh,
cool.
to finish it up. So you might want to look that up because he knows his Eberron. Yeah,
Yeah, I've definitely heard his name before, and I
yeah,
think I've listened. He's on a podcast that's all about Eberron, I think, right?
yes, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know when that's going to come out or anything like that, but I did do a cover for him and layout for the new Savage Worlds edition of Eberron that he's
Oh,
working on.
nice.
So
That's cool, and I
yeah,
love the fact that it's like, is he going to get paid for that? It's like, oh, it's
yeah,
probably going to come out for free, but
yeah.
nobody cares. They just want to
You're right.
do it because they love it. That's
Exactly. Yeah, it's a passion.
Yeah, like what other industry can you see people doing stuff just for the sake of I want to do it because it's going to be fun?
Right,
That's so
right.
cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it might turn into a job. Who knows? Someone might look at his stuff and say, hey, "Dude, you did an awesome job." Just like with Shane with Doghouse, he came to us and was like, "Hey, so who does what on Doghouse?" And I said, "Well, I do this stuff, and Chris does this stuff." And he was like, "You guys want to work on Savage Pathfinder?" We're like, "Sure." Let's do it. So it might turn into a paying gig. You never know. I
yeah.
mean, not everything you should be expected to get money for. Sometimes you got to do things um, not to be taken advantage of course, but maybe do things for because you like doing it.
Yeah.
And that's most of my layout work and stuff. I charge. I'm not that expensive. I know because I like doing it and I like the people that I do it for.
Hmm.
With Scott, for instance, I do a lot of work for him. He's a great dude. I want to see him succeed at what he does. Neon Blood and Task Force Raisin.
I know it's hard to not say that
I
once you
know
say
since
it,
you
eh?
said it. Task Force Raven, I did the layout for that, which was fun. Atomic Ninja, those guys, I still do layouts for them every month for their one shots and their dead end adventures and things like that. I just want to see them succeed. I just want to help out just a little bit.
Yeah. Scott's now going to hear that and he's like, it's not raisin.
Yeah.
I even told him he has to run that and he's like, I'm not running that in a million years.
Yeah, sorry, Scott.
No, no, no. That's just what it's supposed to be, Scott. Sorry,
No,
you missed the mark on that one. You
no.
missed the
I
mark.
actually, I know he goes to that con, Jeff Con, which is Mythic Con. I know he goes to that. I want to go there and play it in one of his sessions. Task
Yeah,
Force.
I know. I've only played online with them.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try for next year to go to Jeff Con as long as
Oh,
I'm
cool.
capable of doing so.
Yeah.
Because I I I've met so many people, but I've never actually physically met them. So I'm just like, I
Right.
want to meet these people in real life, and they're going to be like, "Dude, you're like 30."
Yeah. That's all good, man.
Oh yeah. Um. So I have one more question from me, and then I actually have some questions from Scott and Finder.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cool, cool.
My question for you is, what would be some words of advice you'd give to anyone who wants to create their own game or get involved into the industry?
Um, so to create their own game, see what others have done,
Hmm.
and do your research on what is out there and how people do things. I'm not saying copy them, but just see and know what's going on with whatever system you want to do it in. Maybe it's your own system,
Mm,
and just be aware of what's out there, and then just go for it. Just kind of start creating it. Like we said earlier, you could put it out for free.
yeah.
Like, hey, this is a cool thing I did. It's on my Google Drive. Get it if you want it. Here's the link. And just start promoting it.
and
Um,
and that can pay off huge in
yeah,
the long run. Like look at the guy who made Mothership, where he
right,
released it as just, here's my point 0.5 rules. If you want to
right,
buy it, you can. If not, and
yeah,
then he had like I think the largest indie Kickstarter of all time.
yeah. That's crazy, right? I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, you never know.
yeah.
So, what was the second part of your question? I forgot.
Um, or or for people who want to get involved in the industry.
Oh yeah. I mean, just start producing stuff. Like what we just said. Just start making things. Maybe you'll never get. Maybe you never hit it big, but maybe you will. Maybe what you're doing is pretty good. And someone will notice you and go to conventions. That's another thing. Go to conventions and see these people, because a lot of times the, these creators go to these conventions and they're just sitting in their booth, and they're not talking to anybody. You can go bend their ear and just start talking to them and stuff.
Just chat
That's what
them up.
yeah, that's what a lot of times these guys go to these, and girls gals go to these conventions for, is to meet people and see new talent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
No, that's cool. And don't worry, I kind of consider, because you said guys and then you pause. I kind of consider guys as almost like gender neutral at this point.
oh yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Like I'll say, oh, those
Yeah,
guys over there. It's like that's all women. I'm like, yeah, but
yeah.
that's it's like when you hear like dude or
Oh
boy.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just lump them all together. I really don't think that those things are that's just people over
Yeah,
there.
pretty much, yeah. I think that's what that word has become. I just don't want to piss anybody off.
Oh no, I get you. I get you. I get you. All right, now I got two questions from Finder.
Okay.
What project are you most proud of and why?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's tough because I mean we're currently working on Dust Bunnies. I'm very, very proud of what we have done. Um, I would say Trailer Park Shark Attack, because it came from my original one shot that I ran and I wrote it. Of course, again, heavy editing with Chris, and his son Dirk is one of
Hmm.
our editors, uh, and Dana too, his wife. She was a school teacher, so they know how to edit. But yeah, with heavy editing with Chris and his family, I think I'm really proud of that, because it was a wacky idea that I had that people love. And I'm just still flattered that people talk about it and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a one shot to get people involved in the Savage Worlds. What should I do?" And I always see that trailer park come up. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I really enjoy that.
Well, I
So,
promise next time I talk to you, I will read that RPG file.
okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You
And
need to come to the con and I'll run it for you. Because we have a new adventure that we put out last year called Sharkano. It is an It's an adventure for Trailer Park Shark Attack where there's lava sharks,
oh my god.
and I got to run you through that, man.
I feel like you have so much stuff that you can run with that setting, because like
Yeah.
if you go on Prime and just put the word shark in, you will
Oh yeah.
see so
Yeah.
many shark movies. Like
Yeah.
Ice, like what is the most recent one I watched? I think Ice Sharks. I
Oh
watched
yeah.
one that was, and this one was very low budget, by the way, but it was called
Mhm.
House Shark.
Oh yeah. 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 House shark. Yeah.
I saw that, and we got like a 20 minutes to a half hour in and out, and we're just like, the kid is supposed to be like 8 years old, but he's
Yeah.
obviously 18. We're like, what the
Right.
hell
Right.
is going on here?
There's Ghost Shark 1 and 2. There's Sand Shark. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen them all. Um,
There's two-headed shark attack, three-headed, four-headed,
yep,
five-headed, six-headed, which is my favorite because in
yep.
six-headed shark attack, it starts off as a five-headed shark and then it evolves another head on its tail. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah,
I love that you've seen these movies because I've seen them all too.
they're just great. Like
They're
I
so
love them. Or
yeah.
one of the ones I have the fondest memory. It's was it I think it's called, was it 42 feet below
Oh
unchained?
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
that one, just the
Okay,
ending scene was
yeah,
the best thing in the world, where she just beats the shit out of the shark with her high school bully who's on the boat, just watches as she gets up
right.
and she's just like, what? And the person
Yeah,
hops in
that's
the
great.
water, murders the shark. I love it. I love bad movies. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, me too. That's where all Trailer Park came from. Matter of fact, in the back, the very last 2 pages of Trailer Park, we have a cool 2 page spread of nothing but shark movies that were inspiration for that game. So it's like 2 pages of reference of movies that I've watched, and you can see all the crazy stuff that I've watched for this. Anywhere from high end to Jaws to like six-headed shark attack. You know, it's like it's
And
crazy.
I still laugh that this all spawned from the Jaws movies.
Oh, totally,
And
totally.
like, I don't even know how that happened. You get like this serious thriller that's like,
Yeah.
that made people afraid to go into the ocean
Oh yeah.
for
Oh yeah.
years. Like my buddy, he saw that movie
Yeah.
when he was a kid and he still refuses to go into the ocean ever. And we don't even live by an ocean. That's the kicker. Like, and he's just like, yeah, if I ever go to the ocean, I've gone once. I didn't go in.
Yeah.
I was like, are you gonna dip your feet in? He's like, no, man. There's sharks. I'm like, I'm not gonna kill you.
You'll be surprised on how many sharks there are because I live in Florida and I was recently at the ocean and we saw some sharks feeding right there at the beach. We were just under our umbrella, just chilling, and
Oh,
we saw a school come in, a school of fish, and sharks feeding right off, and 10 feet away, people were swimming. You know, they're not as dangerous, that Hollywood portrays them, but
yeah.
they can be, but uh, they're really interested in eating a fish. They really are. You
Yeah,
know,
we're not really on their
yeah,
radar,
not really. Now we're
uh,
just most of it's an accident.
unless
You
they're in
know,
the air or in volcanoes. Apparently,
exactly. Then there's a problem. You need to
like,
put them down.
yeah, they're already out of their element. They don't care what they're eating. They're just hungry. And
Exactly. Oh man.
so, Finder's second question was, "What mistakes have taught you the most?" Finder's very insightful, I gotta
Oh
say.
yes, he is. Oh my gosh. What mistakes? Oh my gosh. There's been layout mistakes. So because I do a lot of layout work, so I can look at it that way, the question that way, because there's been mistakes where um, you get it to the printer and the printer's like, well, this is too close to the edge. I'm like, oh crap. That means I gotta change the whole layout of a 250-page book. That's
Oh,
awesome. That has happened. So there's been stuff like that, mostly technical things like that.
hmm.
Mistakes in the gaming industry. I don't want to name any names or anything, but there's been something where we had something go to print and we never got paid for and stuff like that.
Um,
Or something went down that didn't make it go to print, stuff like that. So uh, there's mistakes that you learn in the industry. It's just here and there, just little things.
mhm.
But most of it, is because I do a lot of layout for not just with Doghouse, but for everybody else. It's a learning. You learn as you go.
Yeah.
Like we're having a little bit of trouble with some of the covers on Dust Bunnies. The
Mhm.
printer saying one thing, and we're like, well, the template you gave us is like this. So there's little things that you kind of learn along the way, like what printers like, and it might say that on the template, but it might have to be moved over a quarter of an inch so that everything to line up. Just because you never know. So
Sometimes it's almost safer to play to caution.
yeah, yeah. So most of it's technical with layout work and stuff like that with me. So,
Ah, gotcha.
but you learn as you go. So
And I have one question from Scott.
Yeah.
Scott's question is, why am I your favorite?
Oh man, he's so cool to work with. Seriously, he is. He's like the best. Like, so Scott pretty much almost loves everything I do. Like, he'll tell me if like he doesn't like something, or he'll say, "Well, how about like this?" You know. But he trusts. What I like about working with Scott is he trusts that. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time. Now, granted, I wouldn't even consider myself an expert at like, okay, this looks good and that's it. You know, no, that's not the way it goes. It's a give and take.
Hmm.
Depends on what he likes and what he's looking for and stuff like that. But he trusts me and to come up like with something cool. He'll say, just use your best judgment, whatever you think looks cool. That's what's great about working with a guy like him. He's not micromanaging. He's not over your shoulder like every second of the way, which I've in my day life
You
has
appreciate.
been. Yeah, my day job, it's been like that sometimes where I'm just like, oh my god, can you just let me do my thing? I mean, it's just like I've had I've had people like literally pull up a chair and sit over my shoulder and tell me how to move boxes and things around and stuff like that.
It's like,
I'm like, okay, so I'm just your hands at this point. You're just
yeah.
telling me exactly what you want, because you don't know how to run the program. That's why I'm sitting here. Okay. It's just like, it's insane. I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time. I kind of know what's going on. I went to college for graphic design, but that's
And
what's cool about Scott. He lets you do your thing, and he'll chime in if he doesn't like it, or if he has a problem with it, but other than that, he just lets you work, which is awesome.
another thing I find with Scott, is and this is going to sound weird, but he's negatively optimistic. Like he'll
Yeah.
shit on everything, absolutely everything, and it's hilarious. But then he'll come up with some positive thing in the middle of the whole thing, and you're just like, "How did this happen?" Like he's now promoting it, even though he's just. But that's just Scott. Like,
Yeah, it's funny talking with him through emails and stuff. He's not negative. Like with working with him, you would think because you hear him on the podcast sometimes, and he's like a little gruff and stuff. And I'm like, and I get an email from him. He's super nice, super cool guy.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
sure, man. I love that. That looks great. I'm like, wow, okay.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. Even like in an episode that unfortunately like me and Scott recorded, but I was an idiot and it recorded
Hmm.
somehow out of my webcam audio port
Hmm.
thing instead of my actual fancy ass microphone. But I mentioned to him, and I really wanted to tell the story, but just couldn't find a point. But I
Yeah.
feel like this is a good way to talk about how Scott is. Like I
Cool.
mentioned to Scott, I was like, I'm jealous that you had this career path where you can really take all that information and then turn it a into a really creative game that has your
Right.
experience, but also will, you know, be kind of realistic in a Savage World setting
For sure.
ish. And the first thing he said, he was like, "Well, your profession could be turned into it too." And first thought was like, "Oh yeah," because logistics and supply chain seemed like a very interesting game. And literally on the fly, he started popping out these ideas and coming up with with this game. And now I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm definitely creating a game about logistics somehow. Like I don't know how he did it, but he flipped my mind
Right.
completely to it.
Yeah, you can gamify just about anything, but yeah, he has that mind where he's like, okay, this is how you do it, and he knows how to do it. Yeah, it's awesome. It's some of the his games that he puts out, especially Task Force, is pretty cool because again, like you said, he used his knowledge of his day job and put it in that game. I think it looks awesome.
Oh, it does. You should have
Yeah.
seen the I don't know if you saw the original Word document of it though.
No, I don't think I did. I'm
Oh,
not sure.
I remember because he was like, "Can you guys test play this?" And like the system itself, it hasn't changed too much. That part was fun, but there was terminology in there that like
Hmm.
me and Finder just looked at. It, was like, "What does this mean?" Okay, okay,
Oh,
okay. Now then he takes away the abbreviation, and we're just sitting
yeah.
there like, "Okay, so what does it mean?"
Right.
And
Yeah.
he figured out a really good way um to make it so that it still appeals and still has definitions that anyone
Right.
who has experienced military life will understand. But at the
Right.
same time, he's really kind of cleared it up so that, a simpleton like myself who's never really ever looked at anything military in my life
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
can understand. So,
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of got to dumb it down a little bit, not to say that we're dumb, but that's what the military uses, a lot of acronyms and stuff like that. You're like, okay, what's that mean? Yeah. Yeah.
oh
That's
no,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. But he's super great to work with. I love working with Scott. Can't wait for the next project.
yeah. I think I know what his next project is, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. At
Yeah.
least on air.
Yeah. I think he's asked me about a few things too. So I kind of know a
Yeah,
little bit. So,
he's always working on something, man.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What a great mind.
So before we end up, I feel like this is a good time to ask you. You got any future projects that that are in the
Yeah.
works?
Yeah. So again, wrapping up Dust Bunnies is our next thing. We're still working on that. But the next thing, Shane uh, from Pinnacle and his Simon Lucas, who works for Pinnacle, they asked us, Doghouse specifically, if we wanted to write an adventure for any of their settings, like not like a one sheet, but like a full length adventure that could be played over 2-3 nights of gaming. So, but under their official world settings. So, like a Deadlands adventure or a ETU adventure. So that is our next tackle. It's beginning of next year. Is Chris and I we're going to tackle working on something for them, an official full length adventure for them. Um, there's another version of Trailer Park that I'm working on. It is actually back to the Dread slash Jenga tower. I've actually written rules for a Trailer Park Shark Attack called the Tumbling Tower version that we're going to use the Dread rules um, to make a Trailer Park game. That I have it all
Oh,
written up. That I need. We're just trying to get everything off our plate before we tackle that. I've actually reached out to Epitaya Rapidshaw
yeah.
from Dread, who created Dread, uh, and got his blessing. He's like, "Sure, you can go right ahead." He gave me a little bit of rules about it, and I'm like, "Cool, awesome." It was great talking to
Oh,
you.
that's super cool.
So hopefully that'll come out. And there's another game that I'm working on called Insert Coin. I ran it once at a con already, and I'm going to be running it at Genghis Khan. It is a new setting that I'm coming out with. Basically, it's like Wreck It Ralph meets Savage Worlds, I guess you can
Oh,
call it.
so it's kind of like
So
a digital.
yeah, it's still a role playing game, but it's like you play 8-bit characters that get team up together to fight other bad 8-bit characters, so you can come from any video game that is out there that you can create. And I have all these video game worlds that I've created, like
I'm
Kung
actually,
Fu Dudes is one of the worlds. So is one of the Unicorn Rainbow is another world, so you play a little unicorn. Yeah, it's fun. I've run it a couple times as a con game, and it's super fun.
I'm
uh,
actually blown away that nobody's done something like that before. Like, because it just seems like the perfect system for that. Like,
yeah,
especially like since you can really
yeah,
create any character you want. That sounds like a perfect
yeah.
setting, and I don't know how it's not been done.
Yeah, me too. I was actually watching Wreck-It Ralph. It came on. I'm like, that'd be a cool Savage Worlds game. How could I do that? And I started thinking, I'm like, well, what if the every character you play could be from a different world, and you can create the arcade worlds, which I'm calling in the game. You can create them using the Savage Worlds race rules. The just
yeah,
they're
the
from that world.
yeah the one it's in the core rule book where you can pretty much
Yeah,
just create
yeah.
your own whatever you want.
Right, right. Like Unicorn Rainbow. It's a little everybody's a unicorn that comes from here that's a playable character and magic, simple.
Yeah,
And you're a little unicorn.
that's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I was just also thinking, you're talking about the Dread style
Hmm.
Trailer Park Shark Attack, and I'm just thinking it. I'm thinking casino, Las
Mm,
Vegas,
hmm.
and and this the intro premise is you guys just one of you just won the massive jackpot, where you could just get like millions of dollars, and you
Yeah.
also get put up in the what's it called, the presidential suite or whatever, like the high roller suite up at the
Yeah. Yeah.
top of the building, and essentially your whole adventure is the power is out, so the or not, it could be also still on, but you don't want to use the elevators for sure. And
Right.
each Jenga, like you're just going down the tower to get to the bottom to get out of the actual giant casino, which would symbolize the Jenga. Oh, that would be awesome.
Oh, that's a cool idea. I think one of the Sharknado movies was is in Las Vegas. Starts out in Las Vegas, if I
Oh,
remember right. The
not gonna
fourth one.
not gonna lie,
Yeah.
that's one of the few shark related movies I have not ever seen, is any of the Sharknadoes.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, they're so much fun.
I don't.
They're so
It's
much
one of
fun.
those things where it's like I heard so many people talk about it, where I almost want to just be a contrarian and be like, "No, I'm never watching that," and I don't know why. I really don't.
They get campier and campier as they go. Like the
Oh my
first one, they're like playing it almost like super serious, and it's like,
god.
whoa, this is great. But as they go, they get so many like famous, B movie stars or B stars, I should say.
Yeah.
It does cameo roles and stuff like that. It's just Leslie Jordan, the comedian who just passed away. He plays Ben Franklin in one of them, and it's
Really?
hilarious. Yes, it's hilarious. It's
Wow.
because they're going around in time.
I might need to watch that. It's there's so many ridiculous ones, like we're off topic here, but I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite kind of like B movie is Titanic 2.
I haven't seen that. Oh my god.
Oh, you're in for a treat. It's hilarious because it takes all the tropes of the first one and says
Yeah,
we're going to do the complete opposite. Like the name of the boat that they're
yeah,
on, the
yeah.
largest boat is, of course, named the Titanic 2. Like you're just like,
Yeah,
why, and it just gets more and more ridiculous, and the
yeah.
acting on it, you can tell these people thought, oh, I'm in a Titanic movie, it's going to be serious, but
Uh,
it's just a bunch of no name actors, and I love it for all the wrong reasons.
That's awesome.
It's great.
That's awesome. You know who runs a good kind of B movie game like that is Clint Black from Pinnacle. He runs like a bunch of shark games and shark dinosaur games and stuff like that. That is uses B movie characters. So if you ever see him at a con, get him to see if he'll run in one of those, because that, from what I haven't played in it, but I've seen it run and I've seen the reactions of the field, and it looks a lot of fun. It's
Now
a lot of
there's actually, I kind of want to give a shout out to someone right now, just because they asked me if we wanted to talk at some point in it, but they're
fun.
creating was it it's Action 12 Cinema. It's a B
Mm.
movie action game,
Okay.
made done with D12s, no prep and GMless.
Oh wow.
And I'm just like, I wonder what kind of shenanigans you can get into with that.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's, there was a Powered by the Apocalypse game out there called Action Movie World. Uh, Yeah, and I've run it a few times. I'm not great at running PBTA games
Yeah.
because it's a lot of it's on the fly, and I'm not kind of good at that. So, but I've run it a few times, and it's you play an action star that's playing an action type character, but you take the same action star and you play it in another game that's like maybe it's a western, but it's an action game, action game. So you're playing. It's very meta, where you're playing like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but now he's in a western. You play Arnold Schwarzenegger, now it's an alien movie. It's like that.
So you
So
always play the same character, but it's in almost like different movies.
yes,
That's
yes, it's very
pretty
meta.
cool.
If you can find it out there, I think it's on Drive Through. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool concept. It's very meta that way, where
I
it's like,
have already found it.
yeah, you found Action Movie World, yeah.
Yeah, and just to show, like, I don't know how old it is, but when you
Yeah.
buy it, instead of just getting a PDF, you get a zip file.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of There's a lot of PDFs involved, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you have the playbooks and stuff like that.
Hell,
So
even the softcover book though, it's like only $11.
yeah, it's very rules light too. So,
Yeah,
but
no.
it was fun when I ran it, and I love the whole concept of it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like what was it? Scott always talks about Spirit of 77.
Oh yes, I've run that and I played it. I want to play in one of his games because I love the '70s and I love that genre. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, it looks like because I love old films too, and
Hmm.
that one looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're actually, I think we're talking to the creator of it
No way.
next week.
Cool.
Next week, yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
I yeah, next week we're talking to him, and it's funny because I'm pretty sure from the very first episode, Scott's
Hmm.
mentioned like that, like of our own podcast. He's like, we need to get these people on.
Yeah.
We need to get these guys on. And it's funny because now we're like getting to talk to him, and he's like fanboying a lot right now.
See, I always wanted to create a Savage World '70s game, but I'm like, well, how can I do it better than this? I can't because it's like
It's
they,
almost perfect for it.
yeah, it's perfect. Like even if you want to run in Savage Worlds, you could just take some of the ideas and just go with it from there, you know. But that whole game is just crazy and awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know my next Savage Worlds project.
What's that?
You already know it. I've said it like 18 times.
Yeah.
I'm making a conversion to convert both over Task Force and Dust Buddies into its own Task Force Raisin, a
Oh my
hardcore
gosh.
Dust Bunny adventure.
Oh my god.
What's that? Hugs with
Yeah.
bolts. No,
Scott's gonna kick your ass.
I know. He hates the idea, but don't worry. I'm planning to still keep it cute.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, because obviously it's like, well, dust bunnies can't hold real guns, right?
Right. They're little, balls of dust.
Yeah. So what I'll need to do is get elastic bands.
There you
Uh,
go.
I don't know if you know what Canex is. It's a little.
No, I don't.
It's like a little.
No.
It's like toy sticks that you can stick them together, and they're
Oh,
plastic,
okay.
and you can make cars and all that. Well, as a kid, instead we would make crossbows. And
Oh, okay. There you go.
And so you take that, you take the elastic band, and I could
Yeah.
still keep it cutesy with non-sharp things, or I can use carpenter nails. Like it
Oh,
all
that's
works.
awesome. Yeah. Well, in Dust Bunnies, we have a arcane background called Rubit. It's where you make a Ruber, like it's based on Rube Goldberg, where you're
Oh yeah,
actually. It's
yeah,
kind of like a weird scientist where you build stuff,
yeah. The
but
crazy
it's
machines that
yeah,
do simple tasks in very complex ways.
exactly, exactly. And so you could be a Ruber and make those things in that game. You can make little bows and things like that if you wanted to.
Ooh. I think
So
this conversion is going to work out very well.
awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy.
Okay, cool, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think that's all the time we have for today, folks. Karl, thank you very much for tuning in.
Oh,
It was a
thanks, man.
lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good talking to you, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah, if I'm gonna throw up some links of where people can find your work, Doghouse
Okay.
Rules, and if you want to send me some other stuff to put up, I'll definitely put
Okay.
that up too.
All right.
But thanks again, folks, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.